co-host here. We are going to be joined by Wesley Perkins and Jonas Clark, who is a frequent contributor and writer for Project Spurs. We are excited because the Spurs got a much needed win over the Memphis Grizzlies by a final score of 108 to 106. And why is this important? Because the Portland Trailblazers lost today against the Boston Celtics. So now the San Antonio Spurs are moving up from the 10th spot all the way up to the ninth. So now I believe there may be, I believe now with the defeat against Memphis, the Spurs are one game back of the Grizzlies for that eighth spot. Anything can happen though. You know, if you lose a game, you go from ninth to 10th. You can go from 10th to 12th. It's crazy out there, but we're just excited that the Spurs got a much needed victory. Again, this game was a nail biter, man. It really was, and especially in that fourth quarter with about, I think it was like in the 5 minute mark. Oh my God, man. The Memphis Grizzlies, they took a timeout, came back, turned up the defensive intensity. It was bothering the Spurs. The Spurs had trouble sinking a shot. Memphis went on an 8-0 run. It looked like the wheels were coming off, but I'm like, man, we got to see what this young core can do because we did have the veterans out there in Rudy Gay. We also had DeMar DeRozan out there on the court. But they managed to pull things together. You know, at the end, communication, I think, played a pivotal role in this because they were communicating out there. And that's one of the things that I really did notice about this game is the communication factor was there again in this game. So you go with communication, winning, communication, winning. And that's something that we didn't see in the regular season too much, but we're seeing a lot of it now. And one of our viewers is watching here, Jason Garcia. He says, we're number 9. He says, the last shot almost went in. Well, you have that. But again, Jaren Jackson Jr., he hit that quick 3, and all our hearts sank. You know,
Oh, yeah.
I was like, oh, no, here we go. And then DeMar DeRozan, all he had to do was sink in one of the 2 free throws, and he failed to do that. I'm not even going to go there. I'm not going to bash DeMar. That's not what this is about. It's about speaking about a team victory. DeMar had some clutch shots. In that fourth quarter, he had some big time buckets. So, you know, you can go ahead and say what you want about him, but I think he played a pivotal role in the Spurs getting this win, especially in the fourth quarter. He was big shot DeMar, you know. So let's go ahead and get your thoughts. We'll go with you, Jonas. I know you're dying to get in here and talk about the Spurs victory. So what were your thoughts on the win?
I mean, it was a complete win, right? That was 48 minutes of just basketball the entire time, and that's what we've been wanting to see. And when it came down to it, these were situations that we lost during the regular season, and it shouldn't have gotten down to be this close. For reasons, I was watching the Memphis broadcast, and early on they were saying, you know, when the Spurs had a double-digit lead, they made a point to, in their commentary to talk about how the Spurs have blown 13 double-digit leads over the course of this season. But we're seeing a different team out there in Orlando. DeMar, he hasn't been clutch, and we got to see a different DeMar. We've seen a different Derek White to this point. We've seen a DeJounte Murray who's consistently hitting that mid-range. And this is just a very hungry team. And I see, you know, Jason Garcia in here, DeMar to closing. And, you know, kind of going back to last year when everybody was really ready to, you know, and even in his first year with San Antonio, when there was so many people in the city ready to just, you know, turn their backs on him and let him go. You know, I started running with a little bit DeMar DeChosen. And I understand that he's not quite clutch. But tonight he had it. And so complete win. Pop wanted it down the stretch. He took off his mask so everybody could hear him calling out adjustments. There's some stuff we can nitpick on, and I'm sure we'll get to that here. But overall, great win.
Yeah, you know, another thing I'd like to do is a shout out here to Ted Rowe. He's following us over on YouTube right now. He says, I love Rudy, but some of his decision making isn't good. Frustrating, but great game overall. It was a great game overall, and I agree. You know, Rudy didn't have one of his better games. He had 9 points, but he looked a little old out there. I'm not going to lie, but it happens, you know. And also Sergio Lozano, he says, goes, man, I like our young core. We need LaMarcus. Okay. To each his own. I kind of like the team without LaMarcus. I just think they play a little bit better. The
Well, he
fluidity
actually
of the
says
team
we
is
don't.
better.
He actually says we don't need LaMarcus.
Oh, okay.
And that's one of those things that, and I'm sure we might get into it here shortly, but you saw what happens when we don't have size against a team that definitely has size. And Jonas Valanciunas was kind of eating us alive a little bit. Points in the paint for Memphis were huge. And not that LaMarcus is going to really help you that much on defense, but he does eat up space. Granted, that can hurt you on the offensive side of the floor, but on the defense against a young team like this, it does kind of help when you have, to have an extra body down there when you've got very young, athletic, scorers like a Ja Morant and like a Jaren Jackson Jr. Who aren't afraid to take it inside and down to the hoop.
Yeah. So Wesley, let's go ahead and get your thoughts on this game tonight. What did you see? What didn't you see? What really stood out at you?
Well, dudes, anytime we're talking about a victory, it's pretty sweet. And I know this is considered a neutral site, but let's think about this for a moment. What were the Spurs this year? Like 12-24 on the road coming in, and they've won 2 games outside of their building in another state. Granted, everybody's on neutral floor, but it means a bunch. I mean, at this point in time, they're going to need to win as many games as possible. And I had said, from the get go that these first 3 or 4 games were going to really shuffle things around. And so if you're the Spurs, you have to feel very good about the win. The way that, to echo Jonas, the way you played tonight for a full 48, you didn't get too high, didn't get too low. Obviously when Jaren Jackson Jr. hit that big 3-pointer, kind of reminded me of Ray Allen in 2013, right? He kind of, you had a defender right in his mug and he just knocked that sucker down, and you just figured, here it comes, and yet there they were at the end of the game. There was DeRozan, taking it on himself and helping to finish off the Grizzlies. Some things that I thought really stood out to me. Again tonight, you had taking care of the ball was a priority. You had only like 6 turnovers, I believe was the official stat, and 22 assists. And although they had 32 against the Kings, the 22 against 6 turnovers is really pretty remarkable. You had the contribution from the bench. Really, it's 4 people amongst those 4 people between Eubanks, who I thought played a really solid game, with Pirtle kind of saddled at times in foul trouble. You had Rudy Gay, who, didn't have his best game. You had the return of Patty Mills, and Patty was huge, helped really finish off the first half and kind of set the tone. And of course, you had Keldon Johnson, who again, his 9 points may not look like much, but it was the timing of things that he was doing. It was sailing out of bounds, getting a full steal, going down the court, getting a bucket, taking the very best players out there for the Grizzlies and just making life miserable for them. And again, when you start talking about a lineup now, and it's debatable whether we talk about LaMarcus and what he is, what he isn't, because he's not out there. And let's just be honest, we can say whether he's worth it or he's not worth it, but the Spurs players aren't dwelling on that. They're going out and playing with who's out there. And the fact that you have a lineup now that has Derek White and DeJounte Murray absolutely lit it up tonight. And really, I feel is showcasing why the Spurs made such a good investment on him. And likewise with Derek, what you're seeing now in a positionless, NBA is that these guys can come in, and it doesn't matter whether you're considered a small forward or a shooting guard or whatever coming out of college or a point guard. But if you can play and you can share the basketball, and you create good matchups and matchup problems for the other team, it's going to be something that really stands out in the long run. And I feel like this is what's going on the floor. Nobody's used to this Spurs team. They're used to a team that's much more dependent upon 2 bigs and a 3 guard lineup. And so to see this small lineup and Pirtle continuing to do well, and although he certainly had his foul problems tonight, but a really good game all in all. And don't look now. I know we keep saying we just need to be the 9th seed, but we're 1 game back. The Spurs are 1 game back in the loss column to that 8th seed, which is still the Memphis Grizzlies at the moment. So I feel like they're sitting in a spot now that they can't relax. They have to go out tomorrow night and get a good victory. And it's going to be hard against a big, athletic Sixers team that's also been very inconsistent. And so they just got to keep the pedal to the metal. Good win overall.
Yeah, Joanne Hernandez, she said, what a nail-biting game. She said that she's happy that the team got the win. It was a much-needed win. Jay Rodriguez on Facebook says, just got out of work. Let me know what went down. Well, what went down was a nail-biter of a game. You missed a good one.
Yeah.
Spurs were able to pull out the win with the final seconds waning away, and in that final quarter, in that fourth quarter, they got the victory over the Grizzlies, 108-106, and now with the Portland Trailblazers losing against the Celtics earlier today, the Spurs are in sole possession right now of the 9th seed, and they're one game back of the Memphis Grizzlies for that 8th spot. So the Spurs are, I'd have to say, one of the hotter teams coming in right now, as far as how they've been playing and how they've beaten these teams. You like the effort on both ends of the ball, both from a defensive standpoint and from an offensive standpoint. Again, I think communication was pivotal in today's win, and moving forward, I think it's going to be pivotal to how well they're going to play with this NBA restart. If they can still communicate effectively out there on the court, I really think that the sky's the limit for the guys, I did like the young core again. We still had plenty of minutes played by our young core. We go down the line real quick here. You had DeMar DeRozan. Of course, he's always going to be playing a ton of minutes. He played 33 minutes today. He had 14 points. Rudy Gay, the OG, he had 28 minutes, 12 points tonight. Keldon Johnson, he played 25 minutes. He had 9 points. DeJounte Murray, he played 33 minutes, 21 points. Derek White, 33 minutes, 16 points in today's game. And then you go down the line, you have Eubanks, which is another player that Jonas likes to follow extensively because he likes the big men out there and see how well they perform. Eubanks played 23 minutes, had 8 points. Patty Mills, it was nice seeing Patty. Good on you, Patty. I like hearing that. He had 13 minutes in tonight's game, and he had 10 points. Jakob Portal, Jonas, 20 minutes, 6 points, got in some foul trouble. Then you had Lonnie Walker, played 24 minutes. He had 12 points on the night. And we saw Q for a brief second there. He played a whole 2 minutes and 0 points. I'd like to see a little bit more out of Q, Maybe if they get up on a team, maybe we can see some Quindary Weatherspoon out there. I think he's another good young player that we haven't really seen a lot of. But if you follow him in the G League, he's a really good player. He's a really well-rounded player, shoots the ball really well, can play defense. I like a lot of things out of Quindary. Just want to see a little bit more out of him. But, hey, minutes are in short supply right now because it looks like Pop's really locked in with this rotation of the mixture of veterans and this younger core. One of the things that the Spurs were not able to do is play transition defense consistently. That's another issue that the team definitely has. You can see at times where, for whatever reason, people aren't in position. They're not getting back defensively. I don't know what it is, but some players seem to run a little bit faster than others. Let's just put it like that on getting back to their positions defensively. So that might have something to do with it. It has to do with the matchups. It has to do with the athleticism of the Memphis Grizzlies, which are going to be a very exciting team to watch. The ceiling for that team is really high, and once they start putting things together, it's going to get very interesting for the Memphis Grizzlies and San Antonio too. San Antonio is showing right now that we have a great young core. They're learning and they're growing right before your eyes. So there's a lot of things to be excited about. So I'm going to go ahead and pitch to you, Jonas. What is the one thing that you saw out of tonight's game that you'd like to see the team improve on?
I think that the one thing I really want to see them improve on is actually commitment to the development approach. I think that when it came down to the wire tonight, Pop was going after the win. And so when you go back to all the messaging coming out from the organization as we were getting ready for the bubble and, even through our scrimmages, Pop said that it was going to be more about, the focus was going to be more about development than it was going to be for winning. And I understand we were in a super tight situation and you can't fault the guy for chasing the win because it does teach, a large chunk of that young core, in terms of your DeJountes, in terms of your Derricks, about how to close out a game. but to see Rudy out there still, as opposed to maybe Lonnie, or even a Keldon Johnson, or toss Drew Eubanks back out there. He's the same size as a Rudy Gay, and I know that Rudy hit some of the shots down the stretch to help us be able to secure this win. But that just goes back to that question: is it more about winning, or is it more about developing these guys? Mission accomplished maybe on both parts, but to have DeMar and Rudy down the stretch to secure this win, is that going to help build confidence in our young guys that we believe in them, as we continue this stretch in Orlando, or is it going to be more a little bit of the same old where we defer to DeMar DeRozan in the fourth quarter, as we also did against the Kings? Don't forget, he really turned it on. It had 17 points in the fourth quarter, I believe it was, alone. So it seems contradictory to the approach as we come down and we're actually chasing a win. You see the development in the first half, but if this is about development, then Quindary Weatherspoon should be closer to around 10 minutes. Chimezie Metu should have gotten actual play. And even at some point when Jakob Poeltl was in foul trouble, maybe you start thinking about bringing Luka Šimanić in that first half, even though it's close. Get them out there. Let this be about team development. And, we got the win. But does that feel as good for what our approach is said to be moving forward?
Yeah, and same thing to you, Wesley. What did you see in tonight's game against the Grizzlies that you'd like to see the Spurs improve upon for the next game?
Well, it's kind of similar to what Jonas is saying. I thought that one of the big things was just awareness. It's court awareness by not only the coaching staff, but also court awareness by the players. We shouldn't have gotten into a point where we saw the Spurs lose that lead at the end of the game. And we've said that a lot this year. But it had to do with the fact that, again, on the offensive end, they lost their way. DJ in that second half, fellas, had hit like 6 or 7 straight shots in a row, and yet you didn't let him touch the ball. Again, going back to what Jonas is talking about, if the development of your younger players is the most important priority and you've had the hot hand, what does it hurt you to give that chance to that young man who's really been, he was the player of the game today, 21 points, just an incredible 4-game, 10 rebounds. Gosh, you're talking about an unsung hero that's not going to, get quite the credit that you would give to DeRozan or to a veteran. DeJounte Murray was the real deal tonight. And again, likewise, you had opportunities there even at the end with Derek White receiving an inbound. I don't know, maybe Pop had said, hey, please get the ball to DeRozan, but DeRozan goes to the line, he chokes 2 free throws away. We've seen that over and over and over. DeRozan is a great player. He is not a clutch free throw shooter. Why not give Derek White that opportunity?
He did redeem himself. He did redeem himself, and he hit the 2 when it mattered. But yes.
But again, if this is truly about doing something different, and everybody said it, you heard Bill Land, you heard Sean Elliott say it on the telecast. If this is truly something different, the offense looks different. They're flowing different. The chemistry looks better.
It's the energy. The energy on both sides of the ball has really changed.
Amen. And I think that's really what we're looking at when you talk about awareness. And the other part of that awareness goes on the defensive end. Saw too many lackadaisical, not watching man and ball kind of plays where you got simple backdoor lob dunks on the end of the Grizzlies. And part of that's just Ja Morant just being a beast. But, you can't have that if you're going to really be a contender to make the playoffs, or you're going to even make the playoffs and have a chance. You've got to have way more court awareness for some of our players, and a lot of that was players that we're talking about that are veterans, Rudy Gay and others that just got beat backdoor at times, where that's just you can't do that. You just went and scored a 3 on one end, and then you get beat to the basket and give up a 3-point play. Those are the kinds of things you just can't do. So to me, that's what it is. It's got to be better awareness.
Yeah, it has to be better awareness. I agree. But one of the things that I would like to see in clutch situations, for example, is not the Spurs to go directly towards one DeMar DeRozan all the time. I'd like to see them maybe go with a Derek White, or maybe go with like they were even trying to inbound the ball to Rudy Gay at the end because he's a clutch free throw shooter. So I understand the logic and behind that, but I don't want to see DeMar get the ball initially. Like you're going to go to him and you're going to pass him the ball. I think it's unfair to him. I think what would better suit him is if you get the ball and you inbound it, then you pass it to him in an area where he can work with and he can go ahead and get a shot up. I think in those types of situations, that's how you use DeMar DeRozan. You don't inbound the ball to him and just clear out and let him go one-on-one. It's not to his benefit, and I think it's unfair at times for them to keep doing that to him time and time again, because if you're not really paying attention, it looks like, oh, DeMar's not clutch. He is clutch. It's just I don't think the Spurs utilize him correctly in those crunch time situations. But that's just me, what I'm seeing out there. I mean, I don't know what you see a lot out there. Jonas, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it really stood out to me for that entire, I want to say it was like the last minute 30 of the game is when you saw the team revert. And that's what we don't want to see, again, in terms of development. Development is about, moving forward and taking the progress you made to this point and improving upon that and making progress again, today and then tomorrow and then the next day and continuing to build those habits. For the last minute and a half, a lot of it was DeMar iso ball.
Yeah.
And even on that last inbound, like, let's be honest, they didn't inbound it to DeMar. They inbounded it to Derek White, who was in tight coverage.
Yeah.
And DeMar actually was the one inbounding the ball. And so it makes sense then for, Derek to go ahead and try and do something with it. And again, I had the Memphis audio coverage. And so, they were kind of complaining about, why don't you go ahead and just foul Derek White? They ended up, we ended up getting the ball off to DeMar DeRozan. And they talk about, how DeMar is a 80% from the free throw kind of guy, and they wasted too many precious seconds off.
Please foul Derek White, please.
And they wasted too many precious seconds off the clock. Well, and you look at the stat line, and all the way up until the final 15 seconds of the game, DeMar DeRozan did not have a single free throw attempt, and he had 4 in the final 30 seconds. And so he missed the first 2, and then he comes back and he hits the next 2. And that's called being a veteran right there, making the adjustment and getting better at it. But for the most part, again, I saw what I wanted to see, but I'm not right now. I'm nitpicking, right? I can't just be happy with a win because winning wasn't what our focus was supposed to be. I was already, yes, on our Friday night show, I already predicted a 6-2 record for the Spurs. So do I expect them to win? Yes. But this wasn't how I saw us winning, by reverting back to what got us to a sub 500 record when the season went on hiatus back in March. It doesn't show progress. It doesn't show development to me. And when I look up and down that minute stat sheet, Drew Eubanks got some more minutes. Yes. Keldon's right there getting what he's been getting, and Lonnie has been too. But, if you're trying to bring along some of those younger guys, we failed in that element tonight.
And what do you think, Wesley? What are your thoughts?
Well, I really felt like, for all the nitpicking that we're doing on DeRozan, I felt like DeRozan actually has bought into this idea of development of the younger players. And you don't have to look any farther than to see his stat line, gentlemen. He was 5 of 10. He only had 10 shots tonight and scored 14 points. That's a very efficient game, along with 7 assists and only 2 turnovers. And where we saw DeRozan at his worst this year was when he would be forcing those plays in the paint, trying to do too much, trying to be too flashy, basically taking the team on his shoulders and trying to will them to the win, or trying to force them to the win. And so the fact that you see up and down the lineup, that starting lineup, you had Derek White with 16 points, DeJounte with 21, Lonnie with 12. Although Lonnie's didn't have his shot going much tonight, but you had those younger fellas through those first 3 quarters. And I would agree with Jonas. Really, we see a different style of ball from them for the first 3.5 quarters. But when we get to the clutch of the game, they do revert back to what we've seen. And that's a little disturbing. But my cause for maybe a little bit of optimism is that I feel like if DeRozan is bought into that idea, that come the next 2 or 3 games when they start to double team him, that he's going to make another play and have another assist to one of those younger guys for a win. I have a feeling we're going to see some of that. And I was the first person that was skeptical with all the injuries and everything else coming into this play-in scenario that's up in the air, that the Spurs would be there. And I'm willing to tell you that, if they can get a win get against Philly or in their next game after, I really feel like this team is in the driver's seat in order to not only get into the play-in as the 9th seed, but really I think they could still end up being the 8th seed and sitting in the pretty spot, having to be beaten twice in order to make the playoffs for another team. So I just feel like when all things are said and done, there's going to be some blemishes because they're doing things that they haven't been doing up to this point to this extent. And Pop, kudos to him for always, people always say the guy's washed up. He doesn't know what he's doing. But yet here he is at a time when easily he could say, we're going to go with the veterans. This is a veteran-laden team, and we're going to do what we know how to do as a Spurs organization. And instead he's saying, let's make this different and give these youngsters a shot. So all in all, fellas, I mean, I'm not disappointed at all. I do hope that we do see, as Jonas had alluded to, that do hope that we see not the end of game situations that put too much pressure on, DeRozan or Rudy Gay or whoever it might be that's the veteran out there on the floor at the time.
Yeah, so we're going to go ahead and start bringing this show to a close here. Before we do, we're going to have the Spurs play a back-to-back. Next, they're going to be playing against the Philadelphia 76ers. This one is going to be another tough game for the Spurs. As we stated before, both teams are very inconsistent. But the one thing that does concern me a little bit, it's going to be the matchups. Philadelphia is a great young athletic team that has a lot of length. And we've seen in the past what happens when you have teams that have a lot of athleticism, quickness, and length. It kind of bothers the Spurs because of the matchups, because we are a smaller team. While we can get up and run up and down the court, we do have problems in the paint trying to guard these long athletic players. So I think that's going to bother the Spurs at times. It's going to be interesting to see if Coach Pop changes the starting lineup for matchup, matchup-wise. So I'm going to keep an eye on that. But definitely, I think this is another game that the Spurs can win if they play smart basketball for 4 quarters. But we'll go ahead and see if that's going to transpire or not. But moving forward, Wesley, what's your prediction for tomorrow's game? Do you see a Spurs victory?
I think so. I mean, I'm just being real. I usually am bad luck, so I'll knock on wood as I say that. The Sixers have been inconsistent, and the Spurs need to keep them inconsistent. And the way that you do that is you keep the pressure up. You let these guys. I love the fact that at one point today, Pop had looked at the guys, and they were right in the middle, just scoring at will, and he just told them, settle down. Take it easy just for a little bit. Still remember the situation. Still understand the moments of where you are, and what's left on the clock. And but yet it's fun to watch, and I think that the chemistry has just built so much in this bubble. What they didn't get in the rodeo road trip this year, I think they're getting in this bubble right now. And I will say this: I think yes, the matchups are underneath are very favorable for Philly, but I think the Spurs find a way. I think the young cats have a great game again, and we see them come out with victory.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out here to again Frank Guevara. He's joining us. He says, "Go Spurs, go." Jay Rodriguez says he saw DeMar DeRozan had his last name on his jersey for this particular game. He didn't do that in game 1, so he was just asking.
Interesting. Good catch.
So I thought that was interesting as well. It's like, they did show, or the Spurs released on social media, what every player had on the back of their jersey, and they could decide to use that for the remainder of the NBA restart season, or they can go ahead and change it back to their name if they chose to. It looks like DeMar chose to just, go with his name. So that was interesting. So that was a good catch by Jay Rodriguez. Sharp eye there. Your prediction for tomorrow, Jonas, Spurs get the victory, or they are going to get defeated by the Philadelphia 76ers?
So to make my 6-2 happen, I do have them winning tomorrow's game. But I'm a little bit more hesitant. I'm biting my nails in that prediction, for the fact that the Sixers are going to come into this game a little bit more fresh. We're coming off of a game today And the Sixers, I think they played yesterday, so they have a day of rest on us. And this is only their second game in the bubble as opposed to the Spurs' third. We're not coming in full health. We're missing some 3-point shooting though. And, the team followed up their performance on Friday night with where they shot 44 from three, and they followed up with shooting 41% from three tonight. So you definitely like to see that. But it's going to be a challenge, like Wesley said. It's going to come down to size. In his bubble debut, Embiid went off for 41 points and 20 plus rebounds. Tobias Harris added another 30 points, and so Ben Simmons, he might be something to worry about. He only had about 19, but you still have that size mismatch, up and down the roster for the Spurs. So it's definitely something to be cautious of. You want to see this team continue to do what they've been doing well. It's trying to keep the turnovers to a minimum. They were a little bit higher today, 16 turnovers, as opposed to, I think it was a team low 6 just the other day on Friday against the Kings. And so the Sixers had 20 turnovers in their game against the Pacers, but you might be able to just chalk that up to rust. They're also, the Sixers are coming in determined. They lost that game against the Pacers, and while they are secure in their playoff positioning, they still have something to fight for, and they still want to get their stars some minutes early on in this bubble series, so they can kind of taper them back off and get ready to make a playoff push. So I think that the Spurs can still do it. I want to see them shoot better from the free throw line. I want to see, because tonight it was like 72%. And that goes beyond just a couple of clutch missed free throws down the stretch. If Derek White doesn't miss the three, and he's very good, from the free throw line and charity stripes, and he missed 3 free throws tonight. So if he doesn't miss those 3, that doesn't necessarily, the Spurs don't find themselves in that position of such a tight game, and we might have a whole different kind of outcome, and maybe some of those younger guys got minutes. That's the last part. I want to see these young guys get some minutes. It sacrifice the first half a little bit more, because you can always come back at halftime and kind of react and dig yourself out of a hole. But if you go up by too much and allow the Sixers in the second half, and then start bringing in your young guys in the second half, and then allow that Sixers team to claw back and build some momentum going into the closing minutes, that could be detrimental to the psyche of the Spurs, who just watched this other team go on a run and cut into a major lead. So, I'd like to see Pop play with the young guys a little bit more in the first half. And then maybe if you have to, rely a little bit more on, give DeMar kind of almost the exact same approach as the Kings game. DeMar deferred the entire first half, 9 assists at halftime, 1 shot, or 2 shots, 1 make. He had 2 points at halftime. I'd like to see that, and then maybe take over in the second half, but get these young guys some more run.
Yeah, Aaron Aponilar from YouTube, he says, "Hey Joe, are we sure this is good Spurs or ass Grizzlies?" No, this is a Grizzlies team that is very good. That's why they're in that 8th spot out in the Western Conference.
That was the question after we beat the Kings the other night too.
Yeah.
Was this an ass Kings team, or was it good, or was it good Spurs?
Good Spurs.
And I think now that you look at the team taking care of business against 2 teams that are ahead of them in this stretch, how do you not call it good Spurs?
Yeah.
Well, let's be honest. It means more right now to the teams that are fighting for their lives. And so
right.
I don't think you can say any of these teams that are playing for that 8th seed are ass, because right now the Lakers and Clippers are just trying to stay healthy and get some in-game time, along with the Bucks and those teams that are up at the top. They're trying to stay fresh, but they're not worried about what's going on. These eight games are deciding the fate of some of these teams, and so I don't think any of them are going to play like ass.
Yeah,
right.
Jay Rodriguez also says something that's interesting as well. He says the bench needs to step up next game to get the win. He goes, bench is key. And the bench is key, because the bench comes in and it's either supposed to sustain a league or it's supposed to try to get you within striking distance if you're playing from behind. So, yeah, a bench is pivotal to the Spurs' success moving forward, because we've always had decent benches, but right now we're playing injured. We're missing some key pieces right now. So we're trying to, I guess Coach Pop and the coaching staff is just trying to do the best they can with trying to put in these younger players and try to mix them up there with the veterans to really go out there and compete. And I think it's worked so far. Even though we are missing one LaMarcus and two, we're missing Trey Lyles, because we do need their defensive presence inside the paint. Even though the LaMarcus isn't really known for his defensive presence, he's a body there, is what I'm saying. So he can make players change their shot, which will either go in or it can go ahead and send him to the free throw line, or it'll miss, and hopefully somebody can get in there and get the rebound. So that's what I'm saying in regards to that.
And one of those things to consider when you look at the bench, this is a new bench because you've taken some guys off of that bench and inserted them into the starting roster, right? Jakob Poeltl was a bench player for the majority of this last season because we started Trey Lyles over him. Lonnie getting inserted into the starting lineup. He used to be a bench player. I know he wasn't like lighting it up from the bench or anything like that during the regular season either, but you do miss those points. And then you also have to look at, Derek White. He's starting now, which we've all wanted to see, but that does impact your bench scoring. And so now when you look at that bench scoring, it's coming from a lot of young guys, and it's coming from Rudy Gay, who, you're right, he's looking a little bit old, and everybody's trying to say he's trash and everything like this, but he's posted double-digit points in both games. He's contributed on the boards, and he still looks slow, but he doesn't look like complete garbage.
Yeah. I think his contributions are going to be mainly off the bench. He shouldn't be in the starting lineup.
Right. But we did start him a handful of times, even during the regular season. And so again, that impacts your bench scoring.
It does.
Because you're pulling we've already pulled some of the top talent off of our bench. And so now that bench, what you're asking of that bench is for Keldon Johnson to come in and provide 25 points to make that one stat, look good.
Yeah.
Because he's coming right, but he can't do that on his own, right?
But let me ask a question. So they had 40 points between four players. That's production. And if you told me before this series that you're going to be without LaMarcus, you're going to be without Trey Lyles, you're going to be without Bryn Forbes, you're going to be without Marco Bellinelli, you would say unequivocally the Spurs are going to lose almost every single game, and they're going to get nothing off the bench, wouldn't we? Yeah. But yet they've gotten great contributions off this bench. I don't think that's even a thing at this point. I think that what we're getting, if we get 10 or 11 points from Patty, we get 10 or 11 points from Rudy Gay. Let me point this out too. Rudy is guarding the 4 position a lot of the times. He's going to get worn down because that's not his natural position, but he's going to guard that. So we have to be careful not to judge that book too much because he's not running the guard, spot as much as you're going to see him do maybe in the regular season at another time.
Hey, one of our viewers here brings up a good question for you in particular, Jonas. Doris Campano Basco. She's one of our biggest supporters. Shout out to Doris. And shout out to Jack Matlock. It looks like he's joining us from Periscope. So thank you for watching from Periscope. We appreciate you. And he says, go Spurs, go. Damn right, go Spurs, go. They deserve this win tonight. I was ready to go honking. But Doris says, where is Bryn, Joe? Laugh out loud. Well, Bryn was hurt tonight. They decided to keep him out. I don't know if they're going to bring him back in or they're going to sit him out for the remainder of, the NBA restart. After these 2 games, there's only 6 more games left. I don't know. I mean, it just seems like he's been playing through some nagging injuries. I think it's smart of Coach Pop to let him sit out and see how he's doing. Let him recoup from these injuries, because I think in order for you to miss a game, something really has to be going on with him. We don't know what that is yet, but good on Pop for keeping him out, because he's always has the best interest of the players at hand. I got nothing but love for Bryn Forbes.
Well, not from what I've heard from you all the time, Joe. But as the lead drum beater for Bryn Forbes, I've heard that it's a foot injury. If I'm remembering the reports correct that have come out from practice media sessions and stuff. But as I said against the Kings, right? Where Bryn missed that game too. When your team, as a team, you're shooting 40% or better from three, you don't need Bryn Forbes out there because that's his specialty. So you're seeing and so you're seeing other guys kind of fill that role, and that's what makes Bryn Forbes specifically a role player. And his role is when the rest of the team isn't hitting threes because they're just off on that night or whatever. His role is to come in, get that started a little bit, and help you get that, that extra point per possession with a 3 over a 2. And so right now, again, Derek White looks great from 3. I think he only missed 1 in the game against the Kings. He shot a little bit rough tonight. I think he was like 3 of 5 or 3 of 6, but that's still 40%.
I gotta say too, Jonas, DeJounte
7.
Murray looks like he has really good form right now, both from his mid-range jumper and beyond the arc. I think he worked on that in the hiatus.
I think he worked on that in the hiatus, sure, but also, I mean, just think of how it's all impacted when you're able to run with guys that are closer to your skill set, that are closer to your age, and you're not you're not beating everybody else down court. I think that Keldon might even have a little more hustle than DeJounte on some fast breaks, and so that opens up these opportunities where it doesn't fall all on him, and he can. And what I've noticed most from his shot is he's shooting in rhythm. It's flowing with. He's not forcing anything really. And it's just a fluid, smooth motion when he comes down, and if he wants to pick and pop it, the team is passing the ball very well right now. Even DeMar DeRozan, I noted that too. Where DeMar, there's some times where he used to force up a shot, and he'll get down into the paint, and rather than try to make something work and get that little step back, he kicks the ball out. He's recognizing double teams a lot better. So this is just a team that's clicking, and when you're clicking as a team, it helps you click a little bit more as an individual. And I think that's really what we're seeing from DeJounte. He's just comfortable out there. Yeah, he's comfortable. You see the chemistry on this team. But just to go back to the question about Bryn Forbes, if we don't know if he's going to come back, and if he doesn't, and to that point, we also don't know if he's going to come back and be a part of the Spurs next year. This is a contract year for Bryn. So if he's really that hurt, or if Pop is even telling them, hey, we're doing okay right now, rest up, because if we do need you, we're going to need you at 100% rather than 80% or 70% out there on an ankle that can throw off his shot if he's not totally comfortable on it. You don't have to sacrifice that on defense, but just to go back to my earlier point, with Bryn not out there, I need to see a little bit more Quinn then. A little more Quindary Weatherspoon should be coming out there to take some of Bryn's minutes. He's a better defender. He's a better scorer overall, and he's not a better 3-point shooter. He's smooth from 3, but he's not a better 3-point shooter. But he provides you a little bit more. And I think that when you have that opportunity to distribute those minutes out, rather than giving Keldon and Lonnie 30 minutes and 35 minutes and stuff like that, you let them rest a little bit more in those 2 middle quarters, and maybe run a little Q.
Yeah. So on that note, look, we have somebody asking a question here, or chiming in. Maxie from Periscope says, games are so much fun when Brick Forbes and Beninelli are not on the court. Hey, Marco Beninelli did contribute to the cause tonight. He played a total of 0 minutes, so good on him. Well, that's a stat I can get behind.
and it's really easy. And I'm not a Marco fan either. I'm really not. But
I love Marco's Pizza. It's a great pizza chain. What are you talking about?
But Marco has been pretty. I mean, I talked about we're seeing a different team out here in Orlando, and that does go for Marco Bellinelli as well. I think he had double-digit points, about 12 points in the Kings game. He's not shooting from 3 exclusively anymore. He's driving to the basket. He's going for a pick and pop 2. And his defense has even stepped up a little bit. At least in the scrimmages, he had a couple steals and stuff. So I understand that we like not seeing them out there, and I think it's more for the fact of them taking minutes from other people and missing shots.
You
but
got
we've
a
seen
fan
it
here, Jonas, that says David Anthony Galan says, "Yup, Marco and Bryn suck. That starting lineup from Friday was amazing."
Yeah.
That starting lineup is what we ran all through the scrimmages, is what we ran today, and we benefited from a smaller Kings team. When we talked about size earlier here in our discussion tonight, and this was the first kind of step towards that size, where you saw Jonas Valanciunas just being able to eat up a Jakob Poeltl and just dominate over Drew Eubanks to force Pop to bring Jakob back in with 3 fouls to his name. And it's not going to get any easier in terms of size. So it's going to be interesting to see how that affects this game. But when the team as a whole, as I said before, is shooting 40% and better from 3, you don't need to rely on your 3-point shooters at this time because everybody's stepping up to fill that spot.
Yeah. So on that note, we're going to go ahead and end our episode of the Spurs Takeover, which you can watch the replay. It'll be posted up on ProjectSpurs.com because we are doing this in partnership with Project Spurs. So make sure you go and check ProjectSpurs.com out because they release a lot of great Spurs content, especially from our friends Benjamin Bornstein, Steven Anderson, and Paul Garcia. And of course, our friend over here, Jonas Clark, he has a fresh new article that he just contributed to the cause as well. So make sure you go and check out ProjectSpurs.com. You can go ahead and read Jonas's great, insightful article. So for Wesley Perkins and Jonas Clark, I am Joe Garcia. Thank you guys for watching another episode of the Spurs Takeover. So we'll go ahead and end it on that note. Go Spurs, go. And we look forward to a victory tomorrow against the Philadelphia 76ers. We'll let you guys go. You have a great one.
Go Spurs, go.